Welcome to this week's episode of Aiding Your Game, our web series where we talk about hints, tips, and tricks to help elevate your game. Today we're going to be talking about building a better bad guy. Let's jump into it. Last week we talked about building a better encounter, and one of the items we used was using multiple types of adversaries for the PCs to overcome by utilizing a basic scout that shot an arrow with a wasp's nest on it, releasing a swarm of insects. We gave our PCs a different type of challenge. They're facing a ranged opponent. They're having to deal with a swarm of wasps, and it added a new element of challenge to what would otherwise be just a standard hack and slash encounter. Going back to those scouts, we want to look and see how we can build a better bad guy. As you know, most players have seen stats for many of the creatures and adversaries out of the monster manual. By thinking about it a little bit differently, we can use standard monsters and twist them to give a little bit more challenge. In fact, you can see this type of tweaking being done from the official resources. Take the kobold, for example. Standard D&D monster, perfect for low-level encounters, or even mid-level if you use them in the right manner. But look at how many derivatives of kobold there are. Winged kobolds, there are vampire kobolds. The producers have taken a simple monster and tweaked it to give a different challenge for different encounter types. By looking at any standard stat block and modifying it, you can make your bad guys even more challenging for your players and maybe throw them off a little bit. By looking at some of the standard stat blocks, I was going to use this video to actually build out a bad guy right alongside with you. There are so many that have been updated and changed and altered and tweaked for different environments already. The Beholder is a great example. There used to be just a Beholder, but now there are so many different types and versions of Beholders that have already been produced. We've got a wide plethora of monsters in that Beholder family to choose from. So jumping back to last week's video, talking about a simple scout using a swarm of insects. Using that scout template, we can assume they're equivalent to a level 1 player. So by adding a little bit more depth into the scout as the villain, we can determine not only does he have an arrow that has a wasp's nest attached to it to release a swarm of insects as an attack, but possibly they're a little bit more experienced and have gained better armor. Therefore, we can justifiably move up that armor class and hit points. In addition, some of the equipment they may carry may have been pilfered from previous victims, so we can adjust some of the equipment they carry. As for their loot that they may have, rather than just dumping it into gold coins, put it into equipment. Maybe instead of 10 gold pieces, they've actually got a updated version of a weapon, possibly an additional magic arrow that they'll use in trying to thwart the PCs. One of the things that I like to do to keep my players challenged and guessing is utilize some of the combinations of monsters that they have to face. Just like we did with the scouts using the swarm of insects, we have a whole plethora of options to choose from out of the Monster Manual and Dungeon Master's Guide. Maybe they have a scroll that allows them to use Blink, increasing their armor class or making it more challenging for the players to actually connect and hit. While some players who just hope to hack and slash their way through, gain experience, and get up to that level 20 character, by offering a different type of challenge, something that could challenge the hack and slash to get up close and hit, the tactical who wants to position characters to gain the best advantage for flanking, or the range combatant who wants to stay out of melee range and pick them off in almost a sniper-esque move. By making the challenge more difficult than what first is expected, the players themselves, when they overcome that challenge, are going to feel more gratified. They're going to have a better appreciation for the encounter, and ultimately that could lead to a more immersive experience for them. The next situation they approach could be even more engaging for the player through their character. Ultimately, that's what we want. We want our players to be engaged at the game table. If they're not engaged, they're not going to be focused on the game, and they'll tune out pretty easily. This can slow the game down when it comes to their turn trying to assess what's going on so that they can take their actions. By keeping them engaged and giving them challenges that aren't insurmountable, but are actual challenges, we're going to ensure that we've got their attention and know that they'll appreciate the amount of effort that you put in providing those challenges. With that encounter that we utilized last time and the villains that we put in place, they're part of a adventure series that we've put together called One Shot Wonders. These are designed for the virtual world. Since so many things are still challenging and we're maybe not all able to get together to play, utilizing one session adventures is a great way to be able to get in the game, engage with other players, and start building up a gaming group that are all on the same page, to engage together and having the same goals for role-playing. Here are 3 tips in building a better bad guy that you can utilize in your own campaigns, whether you play an established campaign book or a homebrew campaign. My first tip is to keep it simple. By using the stat blocks that are already in the monster manual or some of the published campaigns, you've already got a framework for the encounter villains or adversaries. They have all the information, and you don't need to put in a whole lot of work aside from figuring out the challenge rating that you need to challenge your players accordingly. Utilize the tools that are there in front of you, and you can find a lot of villains who have not been used over much, especially if you look at the appendixes with NPCs and creatures. Keep it simple. My next tip is to mash it up. Like we used in our last encounter builder, we used a scout and augmented that challenge rating with a swarm of insects. We were able to justify it by determining that the scout would release an arrow that contained a sealed wasp's nest. When it hit, it would release the swarm of insects. This gives more dimensions to the encounter. Having a ranged villain, harrying from a distance, and a swarm of insects flurrying around our PCs, we've added more dimension. Mash it up. Don't utilize the same villains, but see how you can use different stats to add more challenge to your encounters. And that'll lead us right into number 3. Make sure you use the stats. A lot of the stats while they give all the information you need to engage one-on-one, have some hidden gems. Look for items like high intelligence or high wisdom. Utilize the villains or adversaries the way that it would make sense for them to interact, especially when you're using the stats and finding alternative ways to utilize these pre-generated items. Additionally, using the stats can lead you into how they would develop at higher levels or increasing their challenge rating. Would they increase their armor? Would they find ways to increase their hit points or their speed? What do the stats tell you about how they would develop into stronger, more powerful, and more challenging adversaries? Be sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. If you like the content, subscribe. We do a new video for aiding your game every Monday. And check out our other videos where we're painting a full adventuring party. Leave comments down below for subjects you'd like to discuss in aiding your game. Put down what you're challenged with, and I'll put in my opinions, give some insight, and hopefully help answer the question of where will your adventures take you? Thanks for watching our video. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we'd love to have you subscribe. Feel free to hit that button if you care to get notifications for when we post new content. Leave your comments below and help us answer the question of where will your adventures take you? Enjoy.